In the past 24 hours, Bitcoin has done really well. It was just trading a little under 100,000, but it's put in a very good recovery. It's currently 105,493. I'm going to explain by using the cheat sheet how you can predict where prices can go, and especially we're going to look at oil. Is this the time to go hard on Bitcoin, just FOMOing and YOLOing in, or is it the time to just run the numbers? Let's find out, and let's run the numbers. President Trump has announced an Israel-Iran ceasefire. Fantastic, and all he needs to do is to get both countries to agree. There's a lot of people buying headlines at the moment, but when you read in a little bit further, and let's just do that. Words are very important. For example, President Trump appeared to suggest that Israel and Iran would have some time to complete any missions that were underway, at which point a ceasefire would begin in a staged process. One thing to note, on the assumption that everything works as it should. It's President Trump who has declared the ceasefire, minutes after each side threatened new attacks. This may or may not come into effect. There was no immediate comment from Israel on Trump's statement, but of course getting a comment from Iran is equally as important. This was the tweet that Donald Trump put out on Truth Social. One thing just to bear in mind, it's important to get confirmation from both sides, because we've seen with the war occurring between Ukraine and Russia that Donald Trump said, yeah, that's going to end, but it hasn't ended. Getting independent from the news is really, really important. And this particular watch list is available from ctksmethod.org, and it's completely free as well. We can see that the VIX did come down in the past 24 hours. That is really good news for markets, because when the VIX comes down, risk-on behavior goes up, junk bonds come up, and typically we see these rallies across the major market indices, across the futures, across the stocks, and of course across crypto. And crypto felt it really, really strongly. If the ceasefire does go into effect and the war is over, that is terrific, no doubt about it. But just like a good trader, you need confirmation. If you don't have confirmation, it's just wishful thinking. Inside the Profiting course, I share a lot of different templates, so this is a row 1 template from the cheat sheet. Now, what we're looking at here is the VIX. When the VIX spiked up, Bitcoin, that blue line spiked down. It came down from around 102,400 to just around that 100,000 mark. And as the VIX came into overhead structural resistance, I've just drawn in the zone here. What we saw is that it was rejected and Bitcoin absolutely rallied. Now there's something very important that I need to show you with oil, and we'll go through gold and silver as well, just so that you can get a bit of a deeper perspective on how Bitcoin and the VIX are related. What I'm going to do here is just invert Bitcoin. Now you can see that the VIX and inverted Bitcoin move together. This is very important, because if the VIX spikes up, we anticipate Bitcoin to spike down, and vice versa. Now, just doing this kind of analysis gives you some degree of understanding on an overlay and how different things relate to each other. The major issue is we must know where the structure is inside the chart, because there was fairly strong structure at these areas, and that's why the VIX was rejecting. If we get a continuation through here, we would anticipate the VIX actually come down, and that will rally Bitcoin, and that will rally the entire crypto market. It will also rally the stock market. For example, if I put the SPX, the S&P 500, and I invert that, you can see that the VIX inverted and the S&P 500 moved together, or conversely, the VIX and the inverted S&P 500. So what we can see here If we get a collapse down on the VIX, this is really good for risk-on behavior. A lot of people just look at their chart and they say, I know where it's going. Unless you stack probabilities, there's no way on earth you know where it's going. And that is precisely what the cheat sheet is for. I want to give you a perspective on US oil because it's really quite important. These particular CTKS paths are always drawn at the start of the month and they're shared inside the service. We saw that US oil went absolutely ballistic on Middle East conflict, and we've seen it just decay down with the hope of ending of hostilities. The big mistake that people make is they don't look at structure, and if you don't look at structure, you don't know where the key inflection points inside the market actually are. Now, I've just marked up the zones on crude oil futures, but understanding there's a ton of structural support down in these lower levels. That means we may likely get a bounce, and I would anticipate it. Inside the main markets, the bounces don't come instantaneously like they do inside the crypto market. But the one thing that we can see, as the crude oil futures just rolloped up, we saw that the Bitcoin price just plummeted down and it reached below 100,000. Now, on news of a ceasefire and ending of a war, Bitcoin has got very risk on. The concept is the war has stopped and buy. That's retail, but not necessarily us. Now, what does it really matter if we look at, for example, Bitcoin and we look at crude oil? Let's just invert this, because if you understand how this actually works, you can see that Bitcoin and crude oil have been following each other, but just Bitcoin inverted, just like the VIX. And this is another row one. So when you look at oil, it's really important to put on your radar. Now there's all of this structural support underneath. And the thing to just understand, when you get a lot of panic or a lot of optimism inside the market, you can get structural overshooting. And that's exactly why I showed you the three-dimensional path first before showing you this. Always understand that you can learn how to trade and invest effectively, but you must stack probabilities. It's an absolute requirement. Now, what would happen if crude oil started to spike? So if the futures on oil started to reverse and do this, what would happen to Bitcoin? Would it go up or would it go down? Please let me know your answers in the comments. It's a very important question and something you need to look at. Another chart to keep your eye on is gold, and when we look at the three-dimensional paths that I share inside the service, they've been fairly good when it comes to just containing gold's price from a downward perspective and an upward perspective. Gold's been on a bit of a rampage recently, and we can see that gold has actually lost a bit of its luster recently. Now, what does this mean for risk on or risk off inside the markets? Always remember that gold is a geopolitically sensitive metal, so when gold spikes up, it's about conflict. Now, if we see oil spiking up and gold spiking up, guess what's happening in the Middle East? Doesn't matter what news headlines are printed, you will know. Please let me know the answer to that comment inside the comments in YouTube, because it's important that you actually think about these things. And many thanks to Purpuratum. Purpuratum said, Ken, can you cover off silver, please? Absolutely, my friend. And if you would like any specific chart to be covered off, just do what Purpuratum did and just let me know. Now, something interesting, when we look at the normalized positive price path, we are literally smack bang on it. But if you look where silver went at the start of the month, it was just going ballistic. Why on earth did I draw this path, which is actually reflecting the price of silver towards the end of the month? That is their focus. The answer is structure. So I'm going to turn on the structural indicator around here and you'll see exactly what has happened to silver. I'm just going to draw a box over that area and then I'm going to zoom into it so you don't lose context. This explains why structure is so wildly important. For example, if we just throw on the structure here, what you can see through this 3685 level, there was so much structural overhead resistance. Silver came up, whacked its head, came back to structural support, came up, whacked its head again, did a structural failure, and made its way back to that structural support. This is why you must understand where the structure is inside the charts that you're looking at. If you're putting money into a chart and you don't know the structure, you're going to burn your money. Why would that be the case? Because you would simply say, look at this thing is going to the moon, and the next day it does a structural failure. The other critical thing is how you read structure. So if the 3561 structural support level is violated, we could anticipate further downside structural plays. The 3610 is a very important level. Silver needs to get above this to maintain its bullish stance, but around that 3680 is the big one. This is why silver has been whacked on the head. And we already knew it at the start of the month. Let's have a look at gold. From the start of the month, we saw gold come up, just go back, come up, and all over the place. If you're looking at gold without structure, you'd probably think that it's really random stuff, but it's not random at all. Look at this structural resistance level that was hopefully flipped into support but has since failed. That's at the 3380 mark. You know exactly precisely where structure is, and you can make very intelligent and informed decisions based on it. Or else you could simply guess, and guessing is very bad to the wallet and to the pocket and to the purse. Also, you can see a structural support level around that 3294. We know at the start of each month inside the service exactly where the key levels are. For the entirety of that month, it is literally a superpower. Now, what does it mean for gold? If gold cannot get above 3380 and convert that into support, it is not going higher. And at the current time, it's got negative structural attraction down to the 3294 level. And it literally doesn't matter what the news is doing, we can see it inside the chart. Knowing where the structure is inside a chart is really important, but it's also equally important to understand the cheat sheet. For example, if the VIX is spiking up, don't expect Bitcoin to do this, expect it to do the exact opposite. And we know that the VIX came down, which was pushing Bitcoin up. Also, if US oil starts to spike up, anticipate that Bitcoin will go down. If oil keeps on going down, remember there's a ton of structural support. It may take a couple of days to play out, but you would expect a basing action in oil at some stage and followed by a bounce. The key to remember, inside markets it doesn't happen instantaneously. So where are the key levels that we need to look at? Okay, so we can see that Bitcoin has come up through all of this structure, and we know exactly why. The VIX decayed and US oil decayed as well. I would really suggest you keep your eyes on both of those charts, especially the structural levels. Where could Bitcoin go to if we're just seeing a further increase in price? Up around that 108,900 mark is a tremendous level of overhead structural resistance, but because we've got a positive CTKS gap, we would be likely to overshoot this, and it's likely to arch this way. And a lot of people would just see a big green candle and say, this thing is going to the moon. No, it is going to structure. Understanding how financial markets move is very important. For example, if you were only trading or investing in Solana, you would probably say, Bitcoin and gold and US oil and the VIX, they have nothing to do with Solana. That is what retail thinks, and retail is, of course, consistently losing money. That is literally the institutional definition of retail. So anytime people say, I'm a retail influencer, just run like hell. In order to win, you must think like an institution, and always remember trading and investing is not a zero-sum game, and it's not a negative-sum game either. The market just pulls a lot of money from millions and millions of different sources and millions of different reasons. You don't take money if you got profit during this period of time, or people don't take your money if you got losses. It is simply the market paying you if you have the knowledge and emotional control. That's it. That's all it is. This is why trading can be learned. And if you do it correctly, trading is not gambling. Gambling is always the same result: destitution. Professionals do not gamble. Even professional gamblers, they're not gambling. This is a question for the students and also for the service members. If you look at Solana, can you tell me what the VIX and US oil did based on that price action? And if you're actually trading and investing inside Solana, just keep your eye on that 146.69 level. Solana is currently 144.62. If we can't get above there, we're going back to the 138.25. If we can't hold 138.25, we're coming back to the 132.84. And just looking up a little bit higher, the next target for an upside push is 154. All of the indicators that I've talked about and many, many more are available from ctksmethod.org. You can grab them there. Just a quick thing to note, if you're buying and selling based on the news, just remember the price is always moving in a wave. As it goes up, it's always coming down, but it's always going up as well. So if you're doing your buy and sell levels dependent on the news, you're going to drive yourself utterly insane. Instead, just swap across to looking at structure, look at intercorrelation, interdependence, do your paths, do the cheat sheet, and you will be an institution of one. Getting rid of emotion is absolutely critical. That's why all these people on this right-hand side, they're pretty emotionless. They're the same under sell and same under buy, but people get so excited when they buy and so horrified when they sell, if they're retail. And unfortunately, retail means consistent losses. So if you're thinking about anyone that wants to teach you how to be a retail trader and investor, run and run like hell. Instead, you need to learn how to be an institution of one. These are lifelong skills that are intergenerational by nature. So many people inside our community are teaching their children how to be more of a financial and emotional blessing to themselves and those they love. The emotional blessing comes from not deciding how you feel based on if the market is red or green. Ugh, terrible. You just simply stack probabilities and go with structure, intercorrelation, interdependence, the paths, and the cheat sheet. It's so absolutely vital that you do your cheat sheet every day, and just remember to stay dedicated and committed. If you win or learn and never blame, you will be an incredible success. Always remember, opportunities in life reset daily, so it doesn't matter what happened yesterday, today is a completely different day. And if you want to be truly happy, you can be happy right now. You only need to do 3 things. Show yourself kindness, integrity, and gratitude, and show it to other people as well. You are not in competition with anyone, and the universe wants you to succeed. Have a great day or night ahead, my friends, and Kate and I look forward to catching up with you again in the next video. Bye for now.